Hi guys, and welcome to another OBSEC Battle Report. My name's Mike, and today we're checking out Game 3 of the 2015 40k Masters event held in November 2015. We've got Chaos Demons versus Blood Angels. Now, we'll very quickly talk about the list because the guys are already well underway now, with the Demons nabbing first turn after deploying on the left-hand side of your screen. We're dealing with Be'lakor, the Dark Master. We've got a level 3 Keeper of Secrets. Now, Be'lakor you can see tucked in behind the sorcerer there in the middle, the statue in the middle of the screen, and that's probably a very important thing to note. We've also got a Soul Grinder, we've got some Blood Crushers, Screamers, we've got a Burning Chariot, we've got a Skull Cannon of Khorne, we've got Flesh Hounds, Flamers, we've got Horrors. We've also got Bloodletters and Demonettes. On the other side of the table, we've got a very unusual Blood Angels army. It's kind of got a bit of everything through those two formations. It's actually a Flesh Terrors detachment, because we obviously get Gabriel Seth in one of them. We've got some Razorbacks, Predators, Assault Marines, Death Company, Vanguard. It's quite a varied list. It's definitely a theme list as well. Certainly neither of these lists are your typical tournament armies that you'd expect at a hardcore event. So, yeah, very, very good to see something a bit unusual. As you can see, obviously the Demons have swept forwards, and I may be wrong, and please feel free to comment below, but the Blood Angels have left a lot in reserve, a significant amount in reserve, and that's probably going to impact the game later on. I don't believe they have a reason, other than the Storm Raven of course, but there may be a special rule that requires the entire formation to start in reserve. I must admit I'm not a Blood Angel player, but if there is a reason for the rest of the army to be held in reserve, please feel free to let me know. What's interesting here obviously is Dave's going for a hunt on Be'lakor at this stage. Be'lakor being on the ground means that he's obviously susceptible to being charged. And that's probably the biggest reason why the Blood Angels have surged forwards. Normally you'd be looking to obviously keep the Demons at arm's length as long as possible. Be'lakor taking some wounds there from shooting, because there's literally no need to get this close to the Demon army. But it's probably a very worthwhile sacrifice at this stage. If you can take out Be'lakor early in the piece, you know, you're starting to immediately limit the amount of psychic dice the Demons have. Dave just jumping in the way of the screen there while he moves those Razorbacks. And you're obviously then also ensuring that you're in a position to deny the Demons some movement while they deal with those Assault Marines while your reserves turn up. I have to apologise for the camera at this stage as well. It's gone a little bit out of focus because Dave's walked in front of it, so hopefully you can still tell what's going on. So as you can see, we've actually got a multi-charge happening there with those Flamers of Tzeentch as well. It's a very sensible thing to do at this point because he wants to make sure that he stays locked in combat if possible to avoid that Soul Grinder's fire. They're very, very exposed, and by moving those Razorbacks up, what he's done is actually blocked in that Soul Grinder from moving that way. He's got to move through cover at this point to try and get out of there. There goes Be'lakor, so very early tactical success there, strategic success I should say. And we've now got the Assault Marines piling into those Flamers. Now this is Cloak and Shadow, so the guys aren't disclosing the Maelstrom cards they're drawing. The Warp Storm's spitting out some Demons, which is awesome. Fairly significant scatter there for the Bloodletters. So there's Keeper of Secrets and Soul Grinder now looking to deal with those Razorbacks, which should be a pretty easy thing for them to do. Well, we've got the Cannon and the Chariot moving up at the back there with the Hounds. We'll have those Screamers now encircle those Blood Angels to try and clear them before they do too much more harm. Psychic phase, we get some dice now. Nothing too interesting happening there. We'll go straight into the shooting phase with the Soul Grinder. stripping a couple of hull points there with its main gun. And now the Harvester stripping another hull point off the second Razorback as well, setting them up for a charge quite straightforward there. Now got the Demonettes spreading themselves out, and the Bloodletters as well. Now those two units are going to pose a fairly significant threat to the Blood Angels. Firstly, because they're in deployment zone, they're going to be scoring line breaker. They're also presenting a threat to those backfield units, and obviously limiting the reserves placement as well later in the game. So there goes the first of the Razorbacks from the Soul Grinder charge. And the second one, thanks to the Keeper of Secrets. You've got to feel sorry for those Space Marines, because that's not going to end well for them, given the placement. So we're killing some flamers there now in the combat. Dave doing the sensible thing and looking to take out a unit before he completely loses everything to those screamers. And look if he can hold them there another turn, which unfortunately he can't. Sees those screamers move up, and obviously the flamers spread out again as well. A couple of Maelstrom cards there scored by the Demons. And unfortunately, no reserves. Now I believe he's just rolled for that entire detachment as one dice roll, so there's obviously a special rule in play there. Which is really, really bad looking at the table. He's got a handful of models left, most of which are in charge range, and he really needs those reserves to come on. We're into Demon turn 3 now. Sorry, Blood Angel turn 2, I should say. It looks like it'll be a very short turn though. So we're going to see some charges happen here. We've obviously got some pistols and some small arms fire at the Demons early on. Trying to whittle them down so that you can actually make a charge into Demonettes. Demonettes may not look that scary, but there's just so many of them. They're so cheap. They'll strike before Marines, and with rending they will do some significant harm, particularly if the dice roll hot. So the less you have to fight, the better. Hammer of Wrath takes out a couple before the Demonettes pick up. Well, it's not so many dice because they obviously didn't charge. Still manages to kill a couple. The return attacks, though, are significant, and sees the rest of them removed from play thanks to instability. Fairly successful charge, all things considered. You traded 2 Marines there for essentially 10 Demonettes. It's a pretty good exchange. We're into Demon turn 3 now. And you've got to assume that we're now starting to talk about mop-up unless those reserves turn up. The Screamers moving up. They probably could charge, but you're probably more likely to see a slash attack over the top of those units to try and get to those backfield Space Marines in the bottom right of your screen. And obviously the Keeper, those Blood Crushers and the Soul Grinder looking off to ensure a kill there, and then obviously get the Consolidate move off the back of it as well. Here comes the slash attack. Apologies for the camera there trying to focus. There's an awful lot of hits there. And he nabs a couple though, which was good. Obviously the Overwatch doing nothing, and those Bloodletters are probably going to make short work of them. A lot of feel no pains there. And unfortunately, yes. Now you've got to assume at this point it looks all but over. The guys are moving at a decent pace. They both know what they're doing, they're veterans. Been playing a long time, the pair of them, and obviously ex-staffers means that they're used to playing games reasonably quickly. Very decisive battle, I feel. I do think that unless those Blood Angels have a rule requiring them to start in reserve, and I probably should have looked it up before I started recording this, I do think that that's probably let them down in this game, in that they just haven't had the guns to deal with those demons. You know, you've got Flesh Hounds in their deployment zone, Screamers in their deployment zone, Bloodletters all but in their deployment zone, and you've still got a Soul Grinder with a good set of fire arcs. You've got a Keeper of Secrets defending it. You've still got Blood Crushers. You've still got Flamers. You've still got the Hell, the Flame Cannon, Flaming Chariot, and the Skull Cannon. Obviously got some shooting here now on the demons to try and put some harm in them. I've got a couple of wounds on them. But unfortunately, we've seen no reserves. So we're back into Demon turn 4. So the Blood Angels are now in a very, very bad place. It's not a good thing at all, unfortunately. What it does mean, though, is that we are going to see Blood Angels backing it up very quickly. Demons manoeuvring now, looking for those Crusade objectives, as well as obviously trying to mitigate the possibilities of where those Blood Angels reserves could come from. I do feel like those Blood Angels reserves is too little too late, though. I mean, the Demons have been able to essentially pick on half the army at a time. And while they have suffered losses, the losses they've suffered haven't been overly significant. So the Bloodletters now go in and make very short work of the... Oh no, sorry, that was my mistake. That's a failed charge from the Screamers. Now the Bloodletters finish off the Marines in combat with them. What's good about that, though, for the Marines is that obviously, first of all, you've still got another unit on the table, because those Screamers would have made very short work of those Marines. But now we should have some reserves start turning up, in the form of a Baal Predator, a standard Predator, there's Assault Marines, there's Storm Raven, Assault Terminators. There's a fair amount of models that are about to be deployed, and it's probably a decent punch from the Blood Angels forces. I will take a moment to mention the fact that the table has been moved fairly significantly since the last game. This is game 3 on day 1, and you'll probably see in the next videos that the table's been redeployed again slightly, as we've noticed some issues. So there's the Predator and the Baal Predator now coming on, Razorback and a Predator coming on in support, and the Baal Predator obviously moving on alongside the Storm Raven over there. I assumed that Storm Raven would be looking to engage that Soul Grinder, which is a real threat to any sort of infantry marines on the table, and it needs to die quickly. Those Flesh Hounds are also going to be problematic. Even though they're only strength 5, they're still hitting rear armour on those tanks, and with so many attacks they will do harm. So we're putting some wounds on the Screamers. Unfortunately, Screamers are just so hard to put down. 2 wounds each, and that 5 up can make them very difficult to deal with. We've got a couple of hounds down there, which is probably, three, sorry. Fairly good result. And after a brief conversation with the opponent, we've continued to shoot at them with the other predator. Probably a decent call. Those hounds, like I just mentioned, are very dangerous, and bringing them down early is probably a very good thing. Now, what's also interesting is the demons don't really have a way to engage that Storm Raven while it is flying. It needs to come into hover mode, though, to obviously disembark any troops that it carries, which I believe will be Gabriel Seth and those Terminators. But while it's flying, it's all but invulnerable to the demon list. So we're going into turn 5 now. Now the demons with objectives secured on those important troops choices means that the Blood Angels are going to have a hard time disengaging them from those objectives. And obviously they've got a Soul Grinder defending one now. And you've got to assume he's going to be engaging that Razorback and those Marines at the bottom of the screen. And as predicted, those hounds go in. The Burning Chariot and the Cannon as well moving about to begin engagement. And the Blood Crushers, it's a very heavy push from the demons at this point. And it's forcing, unfortunately, the Blood Angels to play a very reactive style of game. There go a bunch of the Blood Angels from that vicious Soul Grinder. That front armour of those Predators keeping it a little bit safe there. And now those Screamers going in. Oh, sorry, slash attacking, I believe. Blood Crushers in, Flesh Hounds in. There's Demonettes, I believe, going in there to those Assault Marines. Or maybe Vanguard, I'm not really sure from the photo. Again, a very decisive series of charges there. If you look at what's about to happen, yep, we've lost the Baal Predator. Probably going to lose that Razorback. And then those Demonettes, yeah, they'll take some harm going in. Judging from those dice, I'd say they're Vanguard. But those Demonettes on the charge should just rend that unit to death. Only killed a couple. I think that's actually a drawn combat. And it looks like the Razorback survived as well. So we're going into 5 for the Blood Angels. Here we go. So we're going to have them disembark from that Storm Raven. And it's an assault vehicle, remember, so we're going to see a charge at this point with the Dreadnought and the Terminators with Seth. Storm Raven now in skimmer mode, so its ability to move about and bring its guns to bear are probably increased significantly. Very quick turns at this point. We're now towards the end of the game, and we're going to be in a position where the Blood Angel's staying power just isn't there. That Keeper of Secrets is now looming on the horizon as a very significant threat, and I don't know the Blood Angels have got the guns to put everything down that they need to. Certainly not while claiming objectives. There's been a fairly consistent Maelstrom scoring back and forth throughout the game. Kill points obviously in favour of the Demons. So we've got some Bloodletters. You've got some Flamers charged by that Dreadnought behind that building, and then obviously the Bloodletters being charged by those Terminators with Lightning Claws and Seth. That Dreadnought obviously essentially immune to those Flamers, which is great for the Blood Angels. it gives them a unit that has to be dealt with by a monstrous creature or the Soul Grinder, and it obviously puts some important assets at risk at that point. So there goes some bloodletters there from Seth. Now, unfortunately, the bloodletters only being AP3 means that those Terminators are just going to be horrific, particularly with Lightning Claws and Shred. Yeah, it's more than a few of them. In fact, it was all of them. However, that is the game ending.